Steve. Hi. There we go. This isn't 10:30 in the morning. We can give some pep here. Thank you guys for being here. Welcome to day 3 of FanFest. So our next guest has played a demigod, futuristic space captain, a conqueror, an abusive father, and an atheistic professor. He's produced, directed, and authored a book, True Strength. FanFest is very honored to have our next guest, Mr. Kevin Sorbo.
She said she was 18. I feel like I'm a panel or something. I was checking my emails, but anyway, here I am. I thought I'd have a long introduction. I had a lot of stuff you could really brag me that morning. Really good. I had a video I wanted to show, but we didn't finish that off, did we? Remember I said I did. I said, do we have video capabilities? I got a very funny video I could have shown that's got a lot of action of all the different shows I've done. Finishes with a really cool sort of the 100+ women I've kissed between Hercules and Andromeda, and Tom Jones singing "I Want Your Kiss." It's very entertaining.
I'll find it.
And I got paid to do all that stuff. Crazy. Anyway, what's up?
Well, I want to open it up to the audience. That's why you're here. You want to ask questions. So, show of hands.
Yes, it's
hands.
best to do that.
Raise your hands and speak
Question.
loudly if you have a question. Since we don't have any mics. Oh, come on.
Way in the corner. Way over there. Way over there. Way over there.
There you go. Go ahead.
What was your favorite episode of Hercules to shoot?
That's unfair. I love the series. It was 7 years of my life, a wonderful chapter of my life. It was great. There's a number of them that I really enjoyed, and I think there's one that I didn't like. It was called Under the Broken Sky. We call it Under the Broken Script. But I think the first time I ever directed, I did a show called The Apple, which was, I had a blast doing that one. And Alexander Tidings, I cast her. She ended up doing a number of episodes as Aphrodite. And that was good. I mean, she owes me. She should give me 10%. She never did. And another one that Michael directed, one of the first ones he directed, called The Mercenary. It was kind of a heavy drama. It was pretty heavy, pretty intense for Hercules, but I really enjoyed it because I think humor is what drove the show, which was great, but I also like doing some of the more dramatic beats the show had as well. And Michael directed another one, Michael Hurst, directed another one called Fancy Free, which he did. We introduced the Widow Twankie. Yes. And that was, we saw Michael do that in a play, and I remember going with a couple of people from the crew, and they're going, "We got to worry about Michael." Changed them to Caitlin. Anyway, I used to golf with Bruce. But that character had to be. We brought the Widow Twankie, and that was based on his mother. It was such a great character. And we ad-libbed quite a bit in the show, Michael and I. A lot of things would happen on the set, and we would just throw words in, and they would leave it in, the little one-liners you guys were very nice to laugh to. And Fancy Free was the first time I got to wear a different outfit other than the one I always wore on the show. And so we wrote this in at the very end of the scene where he says, as Widow Twankie goes, "You have to change that outfit." And I go, "It's all I ever wear." He goes, "I know, and I'm sick of it." So it was just fun to sort of throw that in there. But yeah, there was a lot I could list on there. I mean, it was just fun. We had a lot of laughs on set, which made those 14-hour days, go by pretty quick, actually.
Yeah. What else? I saw other hands.
I saw right in the glasses.
What was like one of the most physical challenge, somewhat, sorry, two-part question. What was one of the most physical challenging things you did in Hercules, and did you do any of your own stunts?
Well, I did most of my own stunts. You want to know what the physical challenge was the hardest things I've done? I did a good 90% of my own stunts. I mean, my ego said I could, And I'm an ex-jock, so I looked at it as, I loved it. I mean, it was, like, I worked anywhere from 14 to 16 hours a day, and then I would lift weights 2 hours a day. I was 230 back then, pretty much was my average weight. I'm a wimpy 215 now. So, but I would work out quite a bit, and 18 hours door to door were kind of typical days. It was long days, but I loved it, and I'm not complaining about it. I loved it, and I loved doing the stunts. I mean, it was fun. It was like every episode basically had 3 fight scenes, and John Mahaffey was our DP, very good director of photography, and we would shoot 3 or 4 cameras in fight scenes, and the stunt guys would wear these wire rigs and go crazy, and I mean, these guys were amazing. In fact, one of the young, I mean, most of the guys were 19, 20 years old when we started doing this, and I wasn't. I wish I was 19, 20 years old. Ben Cook, now one of my favorite stunt guys, who I beat up probably the most, is now Daniel Craig's body double, does all of Daniel Craig's stunts in all the James Bond movies. Yeah, and not this most recent James Bond, but the last one out, he won at the Stuntman. I mean, they give up Emmys and Grammys behind the scenes, like for technical things. He won the best stunt of the year in the last, got an award for that, which is pretty cool. But those guys made me look pretty good. But there was, I think the worst, you got injured, you know, I had a lot of little bumps and bruises and stitches here and there. The worst one came by the hands of Michael Hurst, who played Aeolus. And it was the end of season 2 when we were introducing Xena and the Xena trilogy before Xena became a series. And we get in this fight scene together, and we're rehearsing the fight scene with double swords going, all this stuff. And I got to do this 360 turn and spin to the ground as Michael swings at my head. Well, during rehearsal, I felt the blade just barely touch my hair. And I'm way down there. And I told Peter Bell, who was our stunt choreographer, I said, Peter, I'm not happy with this. I don't like this move. And Mike goes, oh, Mike, I'm the New Zealand fencing champion. Nothing to worry about, you'll be great, you'll be great. Very first take, boom, hits me in the back of the head with the sword. I am down. Out. They'd taken me to the hospital. I had a concussion. I had split open the back of my head. I had a dozen stitches put in. If you watch this thing in slow motion, watch it. Because when you fight, you're always supposed to have your eye on the guy that you're ready to hit and punch. Doesn't matter if you're spinning. If you watch any of these karate guys, from Chuck Norris, whoever, when they're doing their kicks and roundhouses, they're always looking at their target. You have to look. And you also miss each other by about 6 inches. You know, camera angles make it look like hit. Like, Hercules put those great hit sounds on stuff on. And so if you look at it, Michael's like a foot shorter than me. But even then, I'm ducking, I'm way down here. And he's supposed to be up here at the sword going like that. He's like this. And I'm telling you, I'm lucky he hit me with the flat part of the sword. Because he had hit me with this, I might not be here right now. And that's when we changed swords. We went to aluminum swords after that. Or as they call it down there, aluminium swords. And yeah, I was pretty lucky. And then he gave me a bottle of whiskey, like I said, thank you. I didn't even drink that kind of whiskey. But, so I think he ended up drinking it. But it was, that one is, and the only time the stunt guys hated fighting Michael because Michael didn't pull his punches enough. So they got hit a lot by Michael. They would get mad, you know. And I never, in all those years, I only hit one stunt guy in 7 years in that show, and it was his fault. Because I'm fighting these guys in front of me, and he's supposed to stop. He's got a set place he's supposed to stop, and I'm fighting, and I'm doing this stuff here, and I throw an elbow like that to a guy, he's coming up behind me. He went a foot over that line. I caught him on the nose, I busted his nose. He went back, his eyes started watering. And I said, dude, I'm sorry. He goes, it's my fault. That was the only time I ever hit one of my stunt guys. And, but they made me look good. But we rehearsed a lot. We did. It was like a dance. I mean, when I had the fight scene on a Wednesday, Tuesday, all the stunt guys would be on the set. So in between the scenes that I'm shooting, I'd be over in that corner while they're lighting up the next scene. And I'd be going through the whole dance movement. And I was always big. Like I told Sam Raimi, who was one of our exec producers, I told Sam, I said, the key to this show is to make sure that people laugh with us and not laugh at us. Because it could be, you know, you can make it cheesy, but make sure everybody's in it. But that, you know, you look at Evil Dead, that's all part of Sam's repertoire anyway, and that's what he likes. So it really helped to work that way. So for me in the fight scenes, I always told Peter, I said, okay, when I fight this guy, I want to kick his sword out of his hand. let's film that going through the air for who knows how long. And then I pick up that guy and throw him 100 yards, and he lands in a cow pie, and then that sword, as that guy's getting back off the ground, hits him in the head, knocks him back in the cow pie, you know? So I think that's what people loved about it, you know? I mean, barroom fights, I throw a guy through a bar, and it's his body shape of the bar. That's what made it fun, and it just, all the little ad-libbing we did, I think, was just funny too, and it just, there was one episode where we actually introduced the Golden Hind, who I ended up marrying in real life. And there was a trilogy of the show, and there's an opening scene where the guy comes in, and it's a big bar fight, of course, and he also beating up all the bad guys. And this guy shows up, and he really wants my help, and I pick him up off the ground already, and he says, no, I'm not the bad guy, I'm here to talk. You know, he talks about some monster, some creature, and he gets in the whole thing about that it's really not, it's more like a deer, and we went, a deer, a doe, a female deer? And I threw that in there, and Michael could not stop laughing. I think if you watch that episode, you'll see that when they finally took one of the takes that they liked, they had to cut out so quick because Michael already starts to smile. He couldn't keep a straight face. Very funny. Yes?
You went from doing action adventure to science fiction. How was it in transition to doing the Walking Tall movies, which are more action, but they're grounded on a more...
You asked about going from fantasy world of Herc. I went from Herc to Kirk. Just to segue a little bit, I was actually in contract negotiations to do seasons 8, 9, and 10 of Hercules during the mid-season of season 7. And I got a call from Angel Roddenberry. So if those are people who are upset that Herc didn't continue, that is my fault. But we already lost most of my crew to Lord of the Rings, because Peter Jackson took most of my crew on the last season of Hercules to do Lord of the Rings. And I was kind of ready to move into something different. I'm a huge Star Trek fan. The original series, I'm a huge fan. And I grew up with that, watching all the reruns in high school and college. I mean, in college it was 10:30, it was Twilight Zone, 11 o'clock, it was Star Trek. And I would study sometimes. And so for me, that was, to be able to do the first show that Gene Roddenberry created after Star Trek was pretty cool. And she called me up and said, I got the show. My husband wrote it in 1969. They did a pilot with John Saxon. Some guys might know who he is. He was the kind of the badass white guy in one of the, which movie? Was it Enter the Dragon? Yeah. I met him one time at an autograph show. It's kind of cool to meet him and stuff. And because he came to me and talked to me about that and stuff. Because at the time they thought Star Trek was a failure. That's what they canned it after 3 years. Probably one of the biggest mistakes any studio's ever made on a TV show. But you talked about from there going to do something like Walking Tall. We did 2 Walking Tall movies, Payback and Lone Justice, for Sony and MGM Studios. And they did so well for those guys that they wanted to make a TV series out of it. And the reason they didn't is that MGM and Sony were going through a divorce at that time, basically. They were breaking apart and going separate. And they fought over different titles, and there's certain titles that they couldn't, one wouldn't give up, so they ended up doing nothing. So that was ready to become a TV series, which I think would have been great. I would have done it in a heartbeat. But both those movies were fun. We shot them in Dallas, Texas. And it was cool. I didn't look like a Buford pusser, so they changed my name to Preston. It's a true story. You don't look like a Buford. And I said, I don't think I look like a Buford. But let me beat up on bad guys. I'm okay with that. But if you haven't seen those movies, check them out. I mean, they're violent. I mean, there's some heavy violence in there. I wouldn't have your 10-year-old kid watch it, but I liked it. It was a good movie. Yes, sir. Way over there.
As a mythology fan myself, I've been wondering, do you have any prior interest in or knowledge in Greek mythology before taking the role of Hercules?
You want to know if I had any interest in Greek mythology before Hercules? Yeah, when I was in junior high, I read all that stuff. I love that stuff. I read everything about it. So the irony is not missed by me to think that I ended up playing Hercules, which obviously even as a 7th grade kid, that was like one of my favorite characters to read about. If you followed mythology, I mean, the show did have mythology, and it was great, but if you actually followed mythology and what Hercules did, killing his own family and stuff, wouldn't have made for a good family show. They kind of had Hera kill my family, so. But Tawny Katane played my wife. People remember Tawny Katane. Yes. We used to make the joke about Tawny, because she would always do her needlepoint between every set. Every set, she's just constantly needlepointing. Until action, she would just keep doing it. And then, so the joke I made is, how do you know if Tony Katane has an orgasm? I said she drops her needlepoint. Sorry, kids. Yes, with the hair.
Yes.
How rewarding was God's Not Dead?
Yes, well, God's Not Dead. For those of you who didn't get to see it, it was the #1 independent movie last year in Hollywood, and it was a $2 million budget, made over $140 million, and yeah, pretty amazing. Really. Hollywood didn't want to touch it because they had God in it, so you can't have that. So I got to tell you the story because I shot a movie called Soul Surfer. I don't know if people saw that. The True Life of Bethany Hamilton, amazing woman. She was on set every single day. At 13 years old, she loses her arm to a shark attack when she was surfing. And Bethany's very Christian, and she really wanted to make sure we kept that message in there and stuff. And there was a Sony executive on the set. We had 2 months in Hawaii, so tough duty for me. And they were worried about saying the name Jesus too many times. So I went up to this guy. This I know I was acting really well because I was actually dripping with sarcasm as I said it, but he didn't get it. And I said, so let me get this straight. So you guys are okay that if you say Jesus Christ as a swear word, but if I say it as it meaning, in terms of love and forgiveness, if you don't like that, he goes, yeah, it's better to say it as a swear word. I just wanted to make sure. That's what he said, which is kind of amazing to me. Yes, can't have that.
Yeah. There's one right over here. Yes, right. You're right there. Yes.
Okay, just making sure. Obviously, you've had a lot of diversity in your roles, and they've all been rather amazing. But if you had to grade them, obviously, on, how sci-fi or how much fun they were, the one that really looks the most fun also had you in the least amount of clothing. And Meet the Spartans.
Oh, Meet the Spartans.
Was it as much fun as it looked like it was on screen?
Meet the Spartans was a hoot. I live like 40 miles out of LA. So when I got to go for meetings, I usually don't really want to because that takes a day and a half in LA traffic. So I had like 11 o'clock meeting and then 3 o'clock meeting one day. So I had a couple hours to kill, and somebody told me, oh, you got to go see this movie 300, which was out at that time in theaters, because I like that kind of stuff. And I'm sure people here know that movie as well. So I go to see the movie, and it was cool. I had read all about it ahead of time in terms of the technical part of it. I had stunt friends that were working on it, and I knew everything was shot indoors in Montreal. They shot in the studio. None of it shot outside. It's amazing what they do with computers. But number one, you see that hole in the middle of town. I saw how many kids and dogs fall in there every day and just disappear. And everyone's so serious, this is Sparta! I said, this movie is primed to make fun of. And 2 weeks later, I get a call from the directors that did Scary Movie, Gate Movie, Epic Movie, and they said, look, we have a movie called Meet the Spartans. We're doing Spook on 300. I said, done. Don't need to see a script. I'm in. And we laughed a lot. I mean, because it was ridiculous. The one scene when Leonidas comes up to me, I played his captain, his right-hand man, and he wanted 300, people to go into battle against the bad guys, and he says, there's only 13 then. He says, this doesn't seem like 300 to me. And I said, well, your specifications were pretty tough. And he said, what were they again? I said, well, you wanted good-looking, six-pack abs and well-endowed. And then when we had to go into battle, when we held hands skipping to Gloria Gaynor's I Will Survive, I think we spent a day trying to get that scene done because everybody was just laughing. So ridiculous. I love movies like that. I did another one called Pool Boy Drowning Up a Fury. If you get a chance to see Pool Boy, check it out. It isn't God's Not Dead, that's for sure. And I've got some ridiculous songs, but I'm a big fan of David Zucker. I love stuff like Naked Gun and Airplane. And, I can be flipping channels, and I don't care if it's 3/4 of the way done, I'll just watch the rest of Airplane, So I love that kind of humor. I've got to meet David a couple times, and he's a great guy. And it's, that kind of humor I just like. I got another movie out there called Julia X. Unfortunately, I don't know if anybody's seen it. I played a serial killer. I told my mom, I said, I made a movie you definitely cannot see. And it ran into problems with the producer and the director over creative control and financial control. It sat in courts for almost 3.5 years. So it missed its window for a release. I know they aired them in Europe, in theaters over in Europe. I think you can find them on DVD somewhere. But to me, I really wanted that movie to get out there because it was more of a psychological thriller. It wasn't like a slasher thing. I play a very strange guy. Julia X deals with, he picks his victims through the internet dating service. And then and he brands them before he rapes and kills them with the letter of the alphabet. He's up to X at this point. And he's a sick guy, but it was fun. From an acting standpoint, it was fun just to do something completely different like that. Yes, sir, over here.
What do your children think about your acting career? Do they have any favorites out of the characters that you play over the years?
Well, they're big fans of Hercules, certainly. They love it. You know, it's weird for me when I see them watching an episode, and I'll come in and just sort of watch a little bit with them, because I remember every episode. I remember, oh yeah, I remember this one, but I'm watching myself and looking at them going, I don't remember that scene at all. It's like, you do that many days, and I mean, it's kind of weird, you know, but my 14-year-old's now getting into the sci-fi stuff now, so he's at that age now, he's really starting to dig that. But you know, we homeschool, so they're with me on movie sets, so they grow up with it. And they're used to me going to the grocery store, going to Target or whatever, and people walking up and saying hi and how much they like stuff. So they're used to that, so I don't think that they don't think it's a big deal. They'd rather play Minecraft. I call it mindless craft. They'd rather do that.
Yes.
And they're good at it. I look at it. It's amazing that 80s graphics is big again, you know? So these guys who ever created that, pretty smart guys. But yeah, they all, unfortunately, my 2 boys want to get into acting now. So, but I knew that would happen. I tell them it's not the best profession to get into. Pardon?
Do you have any words of wisdom for them as far as going in that direction?
Well, the thing I tell anybody is I go talk to my old acting class, and my coaches want me to come in and talk to these guys and say, okay, I'm a guy that's had success out of that class. And really it just comes down to do it because you love it, don't do it because you want to be rich and famous, because it doesn't have to be rich and famous. 100% of the actors, if you have your Screen Actors Guild card, I don't know how many hundreds of thousands actually have that card, but at any given time, 97% of them are not working. So it's a tough business, and Hollywood is tough for a lot of reasons, politically, and it's such a crazy town. But if I do any complaining about the business, my friends say, well, why do you do it? You know, because I love being on the set. I do. I still love to act, because that time between action and cut is my time, and I still love it. I love that creative process, and you guys love it too. I mean, I'm just like you. I like to watch fun television, fun movies. You know, I mean, I hate walking out of movie theaters and go, wow, this 2 hours I'll never get back. But, you know, I want to see something good, you know, but that's why there's a lot to choose from out there. I realize not everybody likes my stuff or watches it, but then obviously enough people have. And a show like Hercules, I mean, we passed Baywatch as the most watched show in the world. It's pretty cool, you know, so I was on my way to New Orleans to do this big press thing, and on the airplane, David Hasselhoff was on the plane. And he's even taller than me. He's like 6'5", 6'6". And this big hand goes on my shoulder. He goes, I want to meet the guy that passed my show. But nice guy. I met David a couple of times. Very nice guy.
Thank you.
Yes?
So with Hercules, you did a lot of outside filming. What was it like going from like outside filming to indoors?
So I know, like Hercules, obviously we were outside a lot using the beautiful scenery of New Zealand. And then with Andromeda, I lived in Vancouver, British Columbia for 5 years, something like that. What was that like? That was inside most of the time. I'm glad it was inside most of the time. The Stargate just shot down the road from us, and every planet they went to looked like Vancouver, British Columbia. Another beautiful green planet. So we decided, let's just do a lot of green screen. But I liked the containment of it. It was great. It was a much better working schedule for me. It was 12 hours door to door instead of 18. To give it extra 6 hours was nice. You know, so I worked it in my contract. I said, I'm not going to go to that, guys. I said, I want to have, and also, it helps when you have 6 other actors working with you that are regulars. We had a bigger cast. You know, Hercules was Michael, Hurst, and me. You know, it was Hercules. So we always made jokes about it, you know, just saying that we'd still be doing the show when we're like 90. You know, people, we're sitting there on our porch with a big, you know, mug of ale, and people, Herc, you know, we go, yeah, we'll be there. You know? Remember when we fought the Hydra? We did one shot that we put in the blooper reels on purpose where it was like Hercules, the Untold Journeys. And so we're sitting in this bar, this saloon, and Michael's over there, and I'm here. We're drinking, we're talking about, you know, fighting warlords and stuff. And the camera slowly pans down under the table, and both our legs are touching each other. And but we laughed at the Xena anyway.
There's an episode of Hercules I'm really curious about. It's Yes, Virginia, there is a Hercules.
Yeah.
What made them come up with that to just break away from?
So you want to know about the Yes, Virginia, there's a Hercules. We did a couple episodes that were like modern day episodes. I love the fact that they made me playing, I was Hercules, pretending to be Kevin Sorbo, an actor playing the part of Hercules. And there's a great, those were just fun, you know? And Bruce Campbell's obviously very good friends with Rob Tapper and Sam Raimi. They all came together in Michigan. They're the ones who started that Evil Dead thing. And so he does a great impression of Rob Tapper, who's married to Lucy Lawless, because Rob talks this way, hey, Starbo, what are you doing? You know, I don't know, was that funny? You know, so. But I love the scene where they all go to the urinals and they're standing there and start whistling the theme song to Hercules, which that was pretty funny. No, it was great just to do those. I think it was part of the show. I mean, we did one called Lake Contemptibles too, where Michael and I had really bad French accents. And it was so much fun to do that, you know, and just to sort of mix it up. And I think my favorite writers actually ended up coming in the last 3 years of the show, have gone and become the top writers in Hollywood right now, and that's Alex Kurtzman and Roberto Orsi. They were young 23-year-old writers, and then when the Hercules finished, they went on to create Alias for Jennifer Garner. They've got Friends, they got Sleepy Hollow, they've got Hawaii Five-0, they did all 3 Star Trek movies, they've done a couple of what other ones? The Cowboys and Aliens, they wrote that one. I mean, these guys are just amazing. I said, what, you can't put me in one of your frickin' movies? I mean, I brought you punks in. Rob didn't want to sign them on. He goes, are they good? And I go, yeah, they're pretty good. So, but, you know, we'll go to this side over here. Yes?
What was it like working with Michael Wurst?
Michael is like the Shakespearean actor of New Zealand. He has. They call it, I think it's called the Order of the Commonwealth. It's like being knighted. I told him I'm not going to call him sir. But Michael is like a little spark plug. I mean, just energy level in this guy is unbelievable. We just did 2 Comicons in Perth and Adelaide earlier this year down in Australia. So we had 2 weeks to hang out. It was great to catch up. Because we keep in touch, but physically it's been a long, you know, we see each other maybe once every 5 years since the show finished. But he's a very bright guy. I mean, he got a degree in Latin while we were filming. And I was like, there's a dead language, that's gonna get you a lot of. Anyway, it was, he's a very bright guy, he really is. He's very smart. And he's staying busy, you know. I know he's been directing a lot, and he still stages his love. He does a lot of theater. Anyway, I'm gonna ask Hercules back there.
What was it like working with Lucy Lawless? And you still in contact with her? You still talking?
You know, I don't. It's hard to see Lucy because she spends 99% of her time in New Zealand, so it's hard to see her. But she came on. She did like 3 or 4 different roles the first 2 seasons before the whole Xena thing. The whole Xena thing was really an accident. She wasn't booked for that part. Who was booked for that part was Vanessa Angel, the British actress who was on that series Weird Science. She got the part, and then she came down, just before she was supposed to come down, she got really ill. She got sick, hospital, I mean, she was laid out, I don't know what it was. So they panicked because they had everything in place, and they didn't know what to do. And that's how Lucy ended up getting the part. They said, we're starting production in 2 weeks. So that's how the whole thing happened. It's kind of weird. She became famous off somebody else's falling out because it's sick. It's weird, but you know, that's not the first time Hollywood stories have happened like that for people. So that's how the whole thing happened. So, yeah, I mean, we did a scene, I remember before she got that role, she was a different character. And she makes me go blind. She makes me go blind this episode. And Salmonius is in it, you know, and I remember she was acting all coy and shy about this kissing scene we had to do. And I knew she was lying. But she's like, okay, I'll just make sure, you know, I just want to be comfortable, just like no tongue. If you, I said, fine, no tongue, don't worry about it. She stuck her tongue so far down. I was like, I think you can see my eyes open out there, you know. I said, what's that? She goes, I couldn't help myself. It's all right by me. All right. Yes, we'll get both to you. Go ahead. In the orange, yeah.
What's the craziest thing you've ever had happen with a band?
Oh, man. I actually got to a point where 7 different people were on the FBI watch list. Because it got to a point that would maybe start out friendly with the letters coming in, but can't, I was getting, at its peak, like 1,000 letters a week were coming in. It was impossible for me to keep track of all that. And we had somebody else do all that. So I would sign the 8x10s that requested, studios took care of all that stuff, but there was one woman that wrote, she lives in Soho in New York City. She wrote a letter, it was a nice letter, saying, hey, I really love your show, love your show. Comes another letter next week, hey, why don't you meet me in such and such a bar and whatever in Soho. I'm 10,000 miles away. Another letter comes in, where were you? I waited all night for you. And then just from there, she literally wrote every week for probably 5 years. And it got to a point, it was just, it was just crazy. She said, I said, I know I'm pregnant with your child. I went, oh, that's a powerful sperm, I'm telling you. That sucker's can swim. And then she said, I went to the doctor, and he said it's called a hysterical pregnancy. You're not pregnant. The doctor was cute. I thought maybe I'd want to sleep with him. And you get some crazy, crazy letters. I got a lot of nude photos from people. That was interesting. Yeah. Somebody sent pubic hair one time. I didn't know what I was supposed to do. Yeah. I was like, okay. Yep. So yeah, there are more stories, but Yeah, right behind you, sir. You got a question.
Who was your favorite non-regular to work with?
My favorite actress. Most of them were actresses. We had a couple actors, but most of it, because you had Michael and I, so it was usually Babe of the Week, type of thing. So I didn't meet my wife until the 5th season, so it was a great dating service for me. You think I'm kidding? I was single. Corey Everson, 6-time Miss Olympia. She played Atalanta.
Yes.
And she was a hoot to work with. Her husband is actually my dentist. He was the dentist that they used on, was it Extreme Makeover? Was that the TV show? He was the dentist they used on that show, yeah. And she was just a blast. I mean, because I'd met her before, because Gold's Gym, I used to live next, I was on the Venice border in Santa Monica. Gold's Gym was only 6 blocks from my house. That was my second home, basically. I was out there working out. Like Lou, I knew Lou before I became famous. Lou was already famous. And I just remember Lou he knew who I was only because he knew that I was always at the gym, but he didn't know who I was. And any piece of equipment you're on, if Lou wants it, he just came over and just would stare at you. Lou, do you want this? Okay. Vote for Lou. And but Corey was a hoot. I mean, in the outfit, I don't even remember the outfit. Your reaction, you remember. I mean, for television. Back then in the 90s, they showed like 90% of her butt, And so there's a scene where I get just, this whole house basically falls on top of me, and she's there to save me, get all the bricks off me and stuff, and I'm all dizzy and loopy, and she's helping me get up, and she goes, Kurt, we gotta get you a doctor. No. She goes, yeah, you gotta get, look, no, butt, and she says, there's no buts about it, and they pan down the camera. I made him do that. That's when my directing started to happen. I did that with Aphrodite. If you remember in the episode, The Apple at All, if you guys remember that episode, where Michael Hurst, every time the apple pops up, he falls in love with the wrong woman. He's supposed to get married. We're trying to bring these two kingdoms together. So I said I wanted a scene. There's 2 scenes in there that I wrote. And one was that I added. One was I started the episode with me laying on the beach, but we show the clouds parting, we show the seagulls flying, we show this driftwood, and it looks like the ship was the storm was just over. And then you see this body on the beach, and we did this triple move down the body, and slowly pan, starting at my feet, slowly panning at my body. I'm mostly naked, of course. It was gratuitous, we know. And it looks like maybe I was part of that shipwreck. But then we put in Beach Boy music, surf music. And I wake up, and I turn on to look, and there's Michael Hurst on a piece of wood and he's surfing, okay? So he's on, and we hired some stunt guy to do headstands and all this kind of stuff. And Michael comes up carrying the wood. He goes, "Herc, did you see that? That was amazing. I was riding that piece of wood on that wave." I look up, I go, "My hurts." And I say, "Eels, really? Do you think that's going to become popular?" And walk away. Which is just, that's what made the show fun. But Corey was doing, yes.
As a director, is there anyone that you haven't worked with yet that you want to work with?
As
a director, is there anyone that you want to work with that you haven't worked with yet?
Unfortunately, the one I want to work with the most has passed away, is Paul Newman. That's the reason why I want to be an actor. So I do have a letter from him. He sent me a very lovely letter. A girlfriend from my high school days is a reporter, and she got to go to his house in Connecticut to do an article on him. And she brought up my name, and he knew who I was. And he knew about Anthony Quinn working with me because they were good friends. Anthony Quinn played Zeus. You guys remember the first 5 movies? I got a whole year with Anthony Quinn. I got a story about that if you want to hear it. So he sent me a very, very nice letter. But he's definitely, I mean, that's somebody I wish I could have met. Bruce is very lucky. He got to meet and work with him on the Hudsucker Proxy. But I would love to work. Female-wise, I'd love to work with Julia Roberts. I think it'd be fun to work with her. I met her years ago. Long time ago. I was at a club in LA. She was very young. I was young. She had just finished a movie called Mystic Pizza, I think it was called. So she was not a big star like her brother Eric Roberts was at that time. And she came to me and said, "Hey, you want to dance?" And I spent the whole night dancing with her. She was a pretty girl, pretty girl. And she gave me her number, and I threw it away. So a couple years later, she's now a big superstar, and she just finished this movie Flatliners with Kiefer Sutherland. I think they were dating at the time a little bit. So I'm in Chicago shooting a commercial. I just landed at the airport, and she was on the same flight as me. And so she looks at me across the carousel, we're in the luggage, and she goes, "Captain?" I was like, "Yeah." She walks up to me, she goes, "Julie, remember we met a long time?" I said, "Oh my God, yeah, we met at Helena's, at the bar in Helena." She goes, "Yeah." And I could see in her eyes, "You really screwed up, didn't you?" I could see it. I could see it. And Kiefer's over there all 5'5" and going, "Who's this tall guy?" I said, "Don't worry, she's definitely not, she's giving me the, proper love." Yes, over here somewhere? Yeah. As an actor, is any role I've dreamed of playing? I love comedies. I love romantic comedies. I would love to do When Harry Met Sally type of comedy. I would love to do that. We'll see what happens down the road. I do have to throw out there. My wife and I created a new TV series, and we actually sold it to Sony and NBC, and we're shooting it in March. So yes, so it's an hour drama. So pray that we get picked up and be back on TV hopefully on a regular basis. Since Andromeda finished, I've shot well over 40 movies. So I've stayed very busy. A lot of people are unaware of that because there are a lot of movies people haven't seen. But I would say there's only 10 of those that I wish I wouldn't have done. But the other ones I think are pretty good, pretty good movies. There's a good range of them. But I've been wanting to get back on TV for a while, so I'm hoping it's called The Miracle Man. So let's see, put out the good wishes and hopefully we shoot the pilot in March, as I said. We're on the second draft of the script right now, so there you go. Yes.
I talked to you yesterday about how my grandparents watch your show, and your show, Hercules, is the only show they watch that doesn't have cowboys in it. How they got my cousins and I watching it. How do you feel about the change in generation and your shows going generation after generation?
Well, she said that, really what's amazing about Netflix, for one thing, Hercules is back on there. I get stopped at grocery stores and stuff all the time from 16 and 15-year-olds, that it's brand new to them. So it's kind of neat that they love it and they're part of it. So, television keeps things alive. I mean, I'm reliving my childhood with my kids because I've introduced them to I Dream of Jeannie and the Brady Bunch and Gilligan's Island. And I remember these episodes too. And I go, yeah, I know this one, and they love those shows. So it's amazing with technology today how, and it's so easy to get DVDs from every decade, really, from every TV show out there. So it's kind of cool that it's still alive and out there. And it's a show that's not going to really, what's going to age on it certainly is going to be the visual effects, because that just gets better and better. But overall, the fight scenes and the message, it's still there and it's fun. You know, the show was fun, and we did some good work. I mean, Rob Tapper came up with some really great storylines, you know, to get the show keep pushing along. And I love the mythology of it as well. And I'm glad, you know, I'm glad to be a part of that. And it's to always know that I'm going to be one of those guys known as Hercules. It's kind of cool. And I even got a letter from Steve Reeves before he passed away that he loved it. He said, "I love what you're doing with the character of Hercules. I'm a big fan." And I actually wanted him on the show. And Rob Tapper says, "Well, people aren't going to know who he is." And I said, "Well, everybody over 30 is going to know who he is." I said, "Let's get him out here." But I think you know, he passed away before that happened, so it's too bad. But it was kind of cool that, you know, that stuff still stays alive. Go right here, sir.
Did you get a chance to meet the guy who played Hercules from Atlantis, the British series?
The British series?
Yeah, there was a series. It was Jason the Argonauts, but there was a Hercules character with him as well. It was played very differently than what you traditionally see in Hercules.
Huh? When was that out?
Just finished up about last year.
Really? What's it on? I mean,
it was on BBC
here
in the States.
What's it called? I'll check it out. I'm curious. What is it called?
Yeah.
Just first in one season or mini season?
2 or 3.
Wasn't on a network or anything, was it?
BBC.
Oh, BBC, wasn't it? Okay. I'll check it out.
Yeah, it was a British series.
All right. Was he British Hercules? Did he give people a proper ass kicking?
He was drunk a lot.
Okay.
He also played Robert Baratheon in Game of Thrones.
All right. Oh, okay, sure. All right. I'll check that out. I'll just do it right behind you.
What can you say of your experience doing the voice acting for Hercules in God of War?
God of War 3?
Yeah.
It was fun. I think you can go online and see, like, in the booth when I'm doing the being directed and stuff. I've been doing more voiceovers lately. And I just did another Skylander voice. I'm the voice of the Crusher in Skylanders. And I've got a couple other things down the pipeline. I just became the voice for a Maserati, for all the car commercials and radio stuff. Yeah. So they're really cool looking spots. I'm hoping they come out soon with them. But I've laid down about 22 different spots already for them. And we'll see if they get up there. Yes?
Any mementos you've taken from any sets?
I stole a lot of stuff. I stole so much stuff. No, I have a lot of Hercules and Andromeda. Really cool stuff. You can actually go online. If you go to kevinsorbo.net, I got some stuff up online that I'm Merry Christmas if you're interested. No, I do. I have all the original scripts clean. I have all the original scripts that I used for each episode with my notes in there. I have all the original scripts signed by the cast of each episode. Of all so 250 episodes between Herc and Andromeda. And I've got 3 of the original Hercules outfits at home. I've got all the Andromeda ones, which I probably about 6 or 7 different ones in that one. And I got a lot of the one-of-a-kind swords and knives and stuff like that. So yeah, I got some.
Do you have any action figures?
Tell the story about that. I'm going to tell a story about that. Because this actually annoys me. You guys, it's too small to see it. So Sidney Sheinberg was the president of Universal Studios, and he knew that I was a double major in marketing and advertising at college, and I had a minor in drama. So I guess I loved the world of Larry Tate from Bewitched. I wanted to get involved in that whole advertising, Mad Men, and all that kind of stuff. And so when we finished the 5 tour movies, I came back for I had about a 5-week break before heading back down to start the 1-hour series. And he said, "Hey, we're going to do a bunch of merchandise on Hercules, and do you want to come in to meet with Toy Biz, Kenner, and Mattel are going to be here. Let's put your double major to work." I said, "I'd love to come in and see what you guys do." So it was all these suits, big long table, big room at Universal Studios. And each toy company came in individually, like 1-hour presentation, each one of these guys, pitching what they're going to do with the show, what they can do with the creatures they can put together, and what they're going to make for us. So at the end of it, they said, "So what did you think?" And I said, "Well, I think you should go with Kenner or Mattel." And I said, "Why?" I said, "Because they do better stuff. I mean, what Toy Biz is offering is ridiculous." And I said, "So what? They're giving you more money up front, but ultimately, the toys they're making are not anywhere close to being what Mattel and Kenner can do." Well, what do? They go with Toy Biz. Because what Toy Biz said to them, which they thought, "Oh, what a great idea." They said, "We have so many bodies left over from Masters of the Universe. with Dolph Lundgren's 300-pound steroid body. Now, I was in shape. I was a big guy, but I was like an NFL quarterback size guy. I wasn't built like a no-neck lineman. But what they did is rip off Dolph's head and then just put my head on his body. Michael Hurst is a foot shorter than I am. They put him on the same size body. So even my niece and nephew, 7, 8, 9 years old, they're like going, Uncle Kevin, he almost isn't as big as you are. When you look at this thing, it's like, I was never that big, but they could have gave me a bigger cod piece. But they didn't do that. I don't know.
Should I take it away?
Well, you know what? What's interesting is that the ones still in the original box and stuff have become big collector's items, which happens as the years go by. But you know, I've got all these, and it's fun to have it. I remember walking to Target that first Christmas with my mom and seeing all this wall of Hercules stuff. Isn't that weird, you know? But I just thought, I go, guys, you could have made such cool looking stuff that become really collector's items, you know, but they didn't. They went to the cheap route. And I was right. They were in the 99-cent bin at Walmart with 3 months. But they made, the one thing they made was cool is the sword. They made this sword that had this really cool 2 different sounds to it, so that was kind of cool. Okay, way in the back.
Are you pleased to have a meeting after the meeting? Disappointed?
Do you know what it means?
Oh, the disappointed line?
Yeah.
I love that. People don't know the story behind that. They all think it's got like 3 million hits or something. It's crazy. Okay, the alter ego character in Hercules is Sovereign, which I love to play. I wish they would have brought him in more. And there's a scene where he is not in his universe anymore. He knows he's somewhere else. And my line really is what I say at the beginning. I say, wait a minute, this isn't my home. And I yell out, disappointed! And people think that was like screen direction. That he blew it, he read that. No, I'm a big fan of Kevin Kline. I love The Fish Called Wanda. And he says it like 3 or 4 times in A Fish Called Wanda, so I just ad-libbed it and threw it in there and they kept it in. But I've had people that have it on their phone, that's their phone ring. I think that's cool. So I thought that was kind of fun. Yes?
What's it like doing stuff as yourself? Like you had that one episode in Hercules, and then you had a cameo on Don't Trust the Bee in Apartment 23.
Don't Trust the Bee in Apartment 23?
Yeah.
Well, that's just fun. You're just playing yourself. I mean, it's kind of fun to do that. But you're still acting a little bit. You still start throwing a little bit something else. And I was surprised that show got canceled. I thought it was a pretty funny show. But, you know, yeah, but what can you do? Look, I created a pilot for ABC. Half-hour comedy, because I love doing comedy. I've done like 4-show arc on Dharma and Greg, I've done 2 and a Half Men, Just Shoot Me, According to Jim, I've done all these guest spots. And I created a show that I hired Barry Kemp to write. Now Barry Kemp was the head writer on Taxi. He created the Newhart series, he created Coach with Craig T. Nelson. So he's got like 20-some years of 3 sitcoms. And we shot the sitcom, it was called Bobby Cannon. You can go online, go to YouTube, you can see the whole 23-minute episode called Bobby Cannon. And it was sort of a Coach meets Cheers thing. It tested #1 for ABC. And I thought, this is awesome. USA Today did a huge thing. From Herc to Kirk is now Kevin Sorbo, the king of comedy. I was like, oh, this is so awesome. And he doesn't pick it up. Doesn't pick it up. Tested #1 of 28 new shows for them.
I actually saw it and I liked it.
It's funny.
It's really funny.
It's very funny. Kate Walsh played my potential love interest. And then she went on to do Private Practice right after that. Rocky Carroll's my sports agent. He's been on NCIS now for the last 7 or 8 years, whatever. It bugs me to this day that they didn't pick it up, because that would have been an 8-year hit for them. And I love the sitcoms. I love the live audience. It's a blast, and your butterflies are going. You're up there, and it's a hoot. It still is shocking to me they didn't pick it up. But it's funny. We went in to meet him, and he says, the president, they got rid of him. Once they got rid of him, they got Modern Family. Their stock, they were like the 4th, they were the lowest ranked studio at the time. And he said, I didn't like it. It was too old-fashioned, like Every Girl Loves Raymond. And I looked at him and I said, yeah, you wouldn't want one of those, would you? And then he banned me from ABC for the next 3 years. Yeah, that's the pettiness of Hollywood. Thank you. Go over here, yes.
So how many times on Andromeda did you actually say, would you like to see my Force Lands?
I said it virtually every episode. Yes, well, have you seen my Force Lance? The original Force Lances were basically like flesh tone, and they look like dildos. And so every episode of any babe on the show, I would pull it out and have you seen my voice lines? And I made underwear. Every year I do a gift for the crew. And that first year, I had these Joe boxer shorts, you know, and I had the big logo of Andromeda right in the crotch in the back. It said, "Have you seen my voice lines?" And we did a crew picture with all of us wearing them. And some are standing forward, some are mooning from behind, but if I forgot to say it, we'd be by the 7th or 8th day filming an episode, the crew would also walk, "Oh, show your force lines, man, you gotta show your force lines." So there's a blooper reel they put out there of me doing it probably about 80, 90 times or something. And the last season, I had double force lances, so it was even more fun. I know I saw somebody, yes, way back there.
What kind of prep do you do to get into character?
You know, really, writers he wants some kind of prep I do to get into character. I think any actor takes it off what the writing is. The writing is key for anything. And, you know, it's interesting. If I got to get, like, if I look at the serial killer, we shot everything at night. We shot in Shreveport, Louisiana. We shot in this really spooky old house, and it just sort of lent itself to it, just the feel of it all, the rain that was always coming down and stuff. It really comes down to what's written on the page. We all have emotions. We all know what anger is. We all know what laughter is. We all know what to be sad. We all know how to do that. And how do you tap into that when you're doing a scene is where it really comes down to. I mean, I had a teacher that I loved what he taught, and I loved one of his methods was called the substitution. And you substitute things. You substitute situations. So what would make me pissed off right now? You know, what would make me cry right now? And sometimes you got to go to places. You know, you got to think of somebody in your family dying. There's a horrible list to go to that you really love, and that helps to make those emotions come out. And I think a lot of actors do that. I mean, there's method acting like a Dustin Hoffman. That if his character doesn't sleep for 3 days, he doesn't sleep for 3 days, which is crazy. And I know Dustin. I did a charity tennis tournament with him, great guy, and I asked him about the story with the Marathon Man. And some of you shaking your heads, you probably heard this story. He stayed up for 3 days, and he got Sir Laurence Olivier, considered the greatest actor of all time, doing this movie with him. And he shows up on set, not sleeping the entire weekend, and looked like hell. And Laurence Olivier looks at him and goes, "Why don't you just try acting, old chap?" Because we know what it's like to be tired. You know? I'm not going to stay up 3 days. Yes?
You enjoy making the movie Call the Conqueror.
I loved Call the Conqueror. It was great. Here's my only beef about Call the Conqueror, okay? I did it right in the middle. They gave me a hiatus. They gave me a longer break than they normally gave me. They gave me 3.5 months off between seasons 4 and 5 on Hercules. And we shot in Croatia and Slovakia, Bratislava, Slovakia. And the original script with the violence and the sex in it was definitely, it was X-rated. It was. But I knew they would have to tone it down. Like they did the original Conan was the same way. They had to recut Conan a number of times with Arnold to get it down to an R rating. And I was like, let's just get this down to a solid R, but let's keep it in here. And Rafael de Laurentiis and Universal Studios didn't want to do that. They wanted to make it a PG-13. They didn't want to offend. They wanted to make it more like the Hercules crowd would like, and I didn't want that. I wanted it to be the nasty script that it was, and so did the writer of the script, of course. And Cull, for those who don't know, was the father of Conan. And S.E. Howard, was S.E. Howard? That was the author's name? I think it was. He actually, when he finished writing the novel, he committed suicide. At 34 years old, he blew his brains out after he wrote it, so you can realize how dark it was. But they were afraid of offending people that were Herc fans already, so I lost that battle. But you know what? It makes a great DVD. It's a fun movie. Tia Kerr's always been a friend of mine. We've known Tia for a long time. Karina Lombard was a different work of art to work on this movie. If you know her at all, she was the woman that seduces Tom Cruise in the movie The Firm. She was in that movie with Brad Pitt. She played the Indian, the Native American that he marries, gets killed. What's that movie called again? Legend of the Fall, thank you. It's driving me crazy. And, well, Brad used to be in my acting class. Brad and I were in acting class for 2 years. And Matthew Perry was in my class too. And it's pretty amazing all three of us had gone off that one class. Because I remember Brad bringing his audition scene for Thelma and Louise. and rehearsing, working on that. He gets the part. He's only in that movie 10 minutes, but he steals the movie because everybody's going, who is this guy? And then all of a sudden, during a break in acting class one day, he says, yeah, I got to learn to fly fish. I'm doing this movie with Robert Redford called The River Runs Through. And I went, what? And then bye-bye Brad. Yeah. But great guy. I don't bump him that much anymore, but I see he's always a very nice guy. I'll come back. What are you?
What acting school did you go to?
Well, University of Minnesota, Morehead State University have very good drama departments, but in LA, I moved out to LA, I didn't know a person in LA, but everybody's an actor. So it's pretty easy to find acting classes. So I studied with three people really, a woman named Janet L. Henty, who's still teaching, Roy London, who passed away. Roy was gay, died of AIDS, but he was one I was with Brad Pitt and stuff. And Roy, I remember, I was in that class for 2 years. I remember I was ready to move on to do somebody else. I moved to another guy called Richard Brander, which I really enjoyed his class, because he would get scripts of movies before they came out. So you could do a part without being, well, you know, this is the way Warren Beatty did. I didn't want to do it Warren Beatty's way. I wasn't affected by watching the way he did. But I remember I told Roy, I went to visit him, I said, Roy, you know, I'm done, I'm going to move on, do somebody else now. And Roy's like, because you can't leave, we're making such great ground with you. I said, Roy, I said, I want to get up there, because you only work once a month. You're paying a lot of money each month, and you only got up in front of the class once a month. I want to work every week. And he says, but Kevin, you learn so much by watching. I said, if that was true, I'd be a pro football player. I'm watching a lot of football. I'm getting better at it. You know? So you get better by doing is what you get better at. Yes?
Do you have any kind of special workout or diet when you're doing Hercules?
Special diet or workout. I always worked out. I mean, I played sports through college. I loved, you know, I was always athletic. I was in 3 basketball leagues in LA for 6 years before I even got Hercules. I was playing in 3 different city leagues. So I always liked it, but when I got the part, I spent about 3 months with Douglas Wong. Douglas Wong was one of Bruce Lee's original students. And so he taught me everything. He created his own system called the White Lotus Kung Fu system. And we worked on all his weapons and all about just, you know, falling. And I mean, it was amazing the stuff. I mean, he worked with me through the ringer. I pumped up, I put about 10 more pounds of muscle on. And then when I got down there, I had a trainer obviously working with me because I'm working long days, so I had to have somebody push me each day. So it was always just workout, workout, workout. And as far as the diet, protein, protein, protein. I had a lot of carbs in the morning, that was it. I would have a big carbs thing load in the morning, but during the day I ate like 5 meals, 6 meals during the day. And always be eggs and steak and chicken, whatever, turkey, whatever, and that's kind of where I stuck with it. And, you know, salads when I could. I'm not a big salad eater, but I threw in salad now and then, you know. But I did a lot of protein. Yes?
I know that after your health issues it was hard. Do you miss the really physical stuff that you were able to do with like Hercules?
Yeah, the last 2 years of Hercules were tough for me. She brought up the physical issues. I had an illness that hit me. I wrote a book. It's called True Strength, if you get a chance to see it. Unbeknownst to me, I had an aneurysm growing inside my body during this whole time I was doing Hercules, and the darn thing exploded and sent 3 clots to my head. I suffered 3 strokes. So I'm lucky for one thing to be alive, and lucky that they didn't go where they could have gone. They went to my sight, they went to my balance. I still have a 10% loss of vision in both eyes, but I've had quite a recovery. It took 3 years to fully recover. But when I went back to shoot seasons 6 and 7, certain season 6, I went from a 14, 15-hour day to 1 hour a day the first one, 2 the next. It was a slow build-up. They had to keep the show going. You can't have a show called Hercules without Hercules, obviously. But I'm glad they kept the show going. But it was a tough road, and like I said, I only worked a little bit in the show. We brought Bruce Campbell in a lot more. We brought in Robert Trevor playing Salmonius a lot more. We did episodes like Yes, Virginia, because of that reason. There was one episode called Porcules. Right, was turned into a pig. You know, they're looking for anything to keep the show going. You know, any idea. But it was a long road to recovery. But the book has been amazing. I've done like 18 speaking events this year just in the book alone. I've got a couple more coming up. So yeah, I'm working on that. But if you get a chance, check out True Strength. It's a good read. Yes, sir.
You mentioned working with Anthony Quinn.
Yes.
Can you tell us more about what it was like?
Anthony Quinn. Anthony Quinn was great. I gotta say, it was. I mean, here's a guy that's been nominated for 6 Academy Awards. He's won 2. You know, he's done 200 and some movies, and the stories he had were just amazing. I mean, here's a guy that's 3/4 Mexican, 1/4 Irish, and people think he's Greek. One movie, you know. But we had dinner every Saturday night for that whole year he was down there at a place called Antoine's, a big Italian restaurant, really nice in a suburb of Auckland. So he's sitting across from me one night, and Eric was always with us. Eric Grundleman, he was the only, I think I mentioned, the only other producer and the only other American down there the whole time with me, as the other American. And his wife Yolanda, who his longest marriage of his like 4 marriages, but she's been with her since Lawrence of Arabia. And but they were going through bad times now and stuff. And he looks at her and he says, "Yolanda, go to the bathroom." She says, "I don't want to go to the bathroom." "Go to the bathroom." So she gets out of the table and she's mumbling, "You want to talk about the girls? I know you do." And Anthony Quinn follows her, makes sure she's out of earshot. She walks down the hallway down to another part of the room, and he reaches across, he grabs my hand, he said, "Sweetheart," he always called me sweetheart. He goes, "What's this thing you can tell me about the G-spot?" True story. And I said, "Mr. Quinn, you've got 15 kids, you know where the G-spot is." I thought that was just so funny. This is a 78-year-old man asking about the G-spot.
Do I have time for one more question?
Yeah, you pick them out.
Oh, man.
So then you can be the bad guy.
Okay. That's fine. The mask over there, which is kind of disturbing to me.
Uh-oh, death is here.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
I love Andromeda, and I was just wondering, was that a good experience for you? Did you wish the show kind of hung on, or?
And Andromeda was great. Like I said, I'm a big Star Trek fan. That show should have gone 2 more years. Stargate never beat us in the ratings. We were the #1 show in first-run syndication.
It was awesome.
Andromeda really picked up where Hercules left off in terms of the ratings on it. And what happened was that Tribune Company out of Chicago owned that show. If anybody kept up with any kind of business news back in 2005-06, they went into bankruptcy. Because I blame the Cubs. Cubs were losing money for them. They own the Cubs. They own the LA Times, Chicago Tribune, and people, less and less people read paper. They read it off their computer now. So what happened is they went into bankruptcy with all the radio stations, everything else they had. They were losing money. So they had to freeze all our assets, and unfortunately we got frozen. And they also had Beastmaster at that time and Mutant X. Beastmaster was shot in Australia, Mutant X was shot over in Toronto, we shot in Vancouver. So here we are cruising along, doing great. That's why the last half of season 5 got kind of weird and wonky because they had to try to come up with some kind of ending because it was done. They were in court for years, and now it's finally come out and they sold off all these pieces, sold off everything. So it was unfortunate. It was unfortunate to not keep that show going. I was loved doing the show. I loved being up in Vancouver. It was great up there. So it was just one of those things that happened. It sucks, but it happened. And it's there. They said they're going to bring it back out again this year, next year on Hulu or Netflix. I know they're working on to get it back out, but it would have been nice to go back out.
Well, it's a great show. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
Well,
We
let's
done?
give, yes,
All right.
warm thank you.
I'm going back to the table. Come by, say hi.